Now, entrepreneurs are like the immune system for companies. They detect dangerous disruptions coming from outside and react to that. And through their actions, through their creativity, they make companies more resilient from outside change because they react with changing the company from inside. There are good differences between entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. An entrepreneur who starts a company and an entrepreneur who starts such a project, such an innovation project inside the company. An entrepreneur creates his or her own business, while an entrepreneur creates something for someone else's business. An entrepreneur turns something new and useful into a business, while an entrepreneur creates something new and useful for the business. Uh, an entrepreneur acts on his or her own whim, and an entrepreneur often needs management approval. Let's see how many people you need in order to get this approval. An entrepreneur has to source funding, where to get money for that, where to get the people to do that. Yeah, while an entrepreneur can often tap into resources that are already available in the company. An entrepreneur also may receive huge financial risks and rewards. So this may be that they fail and they're bankrupt, or that they make a billion-dollar company and they make it rich, strike it rich. Yeah, while an entrepreneur has less financial risks. What do they risk? Losing their job, but also lower rewards. It could be just a little bonus on that, in contrast to the money that they may earn the company. An entrepreneur builds also a company and culture from scratch, while an entrepreneur has to work within the confines of a company and culture. So entrepreneurs have high autonomy, entrepreneurs less so. Now, what are the traits of successful entrepreneurs? They're passionate, they're self-driven, passionate by the topic that they're pushing. They spot trends. They have a keen sense for trends. They are looking at the newest stuff always and feel that is something that is important for us. They're curious and open-minded. They're open to new ideas and keep searching for new input. They're multi-talented and so-called T-shaped. Yeah, that means they have one deep expertise and then a broad range of interests and knowledge in other areas. They are not driven by monetary incentives. They're doing it because they think this is important. Yeah, monetary rewards, of course, is important, but this is at the beginning not even promised. This is not on the table. But later on, that may be an important component to make sure that they get the reward. They are resilient and determined. And that's not easy in a big company where you have a lot of people say no and block or don't do anything. They are resourceful and networked, so they typically also tend to have a lot of meetings. They tend to have a vast network within an organization. Yeah, they know where to find help and get resources, and kind of get this help without having a budget on these informal ways. They are confident but also humble. Yeah, they're certain that this is an idea that's important, but still know it's a long path and a long can go wrong. And they also know how to pivot. So they adapt not because of somebody tells them to stop, but because of product, service, or customer needs. And they're courageous. They're prepared to take risks and rejection. Yeah, and often it may be the immediate manager who threatens them and says, you have a lot of other things to do. Why are you doing this even? Now, Helen Greiner, who is the co-founder of iRobot, she said, very important is, we mentioned it already, is drive or passion. Because she says there will be roadblocks along the way, and in order to plow through them, you have to be passionate about the need you're addressing. If you're not, you will not get up every morning to try and solve all the roadblocks that come up along the way. Yeah, you will just, do nothing, just go the path of least resistance. Entrepreneurs go often the path of the biggest resistance. It's like entrepreneurs. Yeah, they're the only people who leave companies a 40 hours job in order to work 80 hours a week. Yeah? Now, there are what we call the so-called executive skill life cycle, and that means that executives in companies need different skills throughout the maturity of a company. So what do I mean with that? So for example, if this is a startup, if you're in the startup stage, that could also be a new product is kind of in the startup stage. Yeah, we need to develop and launch business ideas. That's the imperative of the organization. So, and the organization is primarily rewarding discovery skills, and it's less important at the moment the delivery skills. It's discovering what the real problem is. Yeah, but once we are in the growth stage where we realize, oh, that's the idea, we need delivery skills that we need to reward. Discovery becomes less important. Now it becomes important to scale. Now it becomes important to fix it, to quality assurance, to roll it out to customers, to get it in there, to get to the money, basically, to monetize on that, to get the money back that we invested. The mature stage is we are already established here. We are exploiting the resources. We are trying to optimize on them to become more efficient, to decrease costs that are there. So delivery skills are still ruling here, and discovery skills up secondarily. And at the decline stage, once the product ends its life cycle, we are selling less and less, where less and less people are interested in it. That means we need to find new ideas. We need to start giving discovery skills a higher imperative again, make them more important again, and so that we can replace this mature declining product and service, replace it by new products. Now, to do discovery, there's one important element that we seem to forget. We are born for asking questions, but we forget to ask them and how to ask them. With children, you know that they are always like, why is the sky blue? Why is this? Why is that? Yeah, and this is the first stage of how they're starting. Each of us starts like that, and then we start, how is that gone? Yeah, and how is that doing? And so on. So we ask more sophisticated questions in order to understand the world better. And that is something that we need to foster and encourage. We are often forgetting to ask questions. And ways to ask questions is, we need the why, the what if, and the how of innovative questioning. And that means like, ask a question. That's the first step. Ask a question. And then, why did I come up with that question? What are the underlying assumptions of that question? And is there a different question I should be asking? And often we just ask a question and look immediately for a solution. And that's the wrong way. We often need to repeatedly ask questions and change the questions. Now, some of the ways to do that is like a 6-step question program. A team lead, somebody who comes up, an entrepreneur who comes up with a question focus that we initially started. It may be a hypothesis, but phrased in the form of a question. And then team members are asked to produce more questions. So any statement that they do should be turned into a question, actually. And team members improve on their questions. So they open and close questions. They make them broader, come up with additional questions, and close them and tailor down to the most important question. That's where we start prioritizing them. So typically then select the 3 favorites that you have, and then go and decide on those next steps for those prioritized questions and act on them. And the last step is then to reflect on what we've learned on that. We are often not asking questions. When we are asked to change statements into a question, we get more engagement from every team member, because every team member is invited to do that. A statement also stops off my conversation, while a question continues the conversation. Now, we've talked already about engagement levels, and when we look at engagement levels now for people, we have heard about the engaged, the not engaged, and the actively disengaged. The entrepreneur is definitely on a much higher level as an engaged, because here it's not just looking for ideas, but really how to turn them into some real products and overcome everything. So an employee mindset comes in there for an entrepreneur who is aware then of the bigger picture, including the strategic goals, the customer desires, the competitive threats, and the need for continuous improvement on the organization. And the result is that these entrepreneurs, they act like leaders by creating value through cost reducing and revenue increasing innovations. So this is the engagement level, type of level that you get with an entrepreneur. This is more than Gallup normally would look into. Um, so an entrepreneur himself, herself, cannot operate alone. There are complementary strengths that are in there. So when we look at it, an entrepreneur has ideas and first outlines. An entrepreneur has outlines, ideas, builds coalition to get shit done, has his surgeons implement, and a manager can help to scale and bring it to market success. Basically the executive function that we have here. So there are certain things that are similar between managers, entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs. Here's a list. Here's a list of them, and there's a whole way to evaluate the entrepreneurial climate index, which evaluates the attractiveness for entrepreneurs of an organization within 6 clusters. So is it more exploration? Can I come up and discover new ideas, or is it just for exploiting, scaling, doing this stuff? Is it transaction based? Do I have to follow step by step something that somebody came up with, or can I change and question those things? Is there hierarchy, or is it based on networks, the organization? Are we allowed to change, or is the organization really trying to keep what it has today? Yeah. Do I have open access to resources, to people, to information, or am I assigned to that and I cannot deviate from that? And is there direction or allocation? Can I choose myself that thing, or am I again allocated, assigned to those things? So this is the climate index, but there are a bunch of things that are important for that space. So for example, we have mentioned in the entrepreneurship pyramid what we call creativity and playfulness. So when we look at history, we realize that there were quite a number of famous scientists, artists, and composers that were not only known for their creativity, but they were also remarkably playful. So Mozart, for example, was notorious for his high-spirited pranks and jokes. If you speak German and you've ever read his letters, they're pretty potty-mouthed. They are funny when you read them, and they speak from his heart. And Mozart, of course, is one of the top composers that humanity ever brought forward. Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin, he said when he was asked what he's doing, he said, "I play with microbes," and that kind of attitude kept him alert and aware of things like this one probe that he had, this one sample that he had that looked like it was spilled, but he looked at it and said, "Hey, that's funny. Why is that happening?" Yeah, instead of just pouring it away and seeing it as a problem, and that's how he discovered penicillin. Or M.C. Escher, the famous artist who did this mind-bending art, he said, "I can't keep from fooling around with our irrefutable certainties."